currently living in a world that rewards certainty and punishes nuance. Especially in the age of social media, due to algorithms, people are existing in their own echo chamber, and hive-mind, black and white thinking is on the rise, and the world is just feeling extremely divided. If we actually want to solve the collective issues that are going on in the world, learning how to be a free thinker is more important than ever. First, I want to explain the concept of pendulums. This might sound a little out there for some, but please, just stay with me. I learned this concept from the book Reality Transurfing. Pendulums are energetic structures that form when enough people collectively think the same thoughts and act in the same way. Some clear examples of this are political parties like Democrat, Republican, also ideologies like fascism, communism, liberalism, all religions, atheism, social justice movements, also sports teams, feminism, capitalism, groups of people like MAGA, crypto bros, cosplayers, popular diets like keto, veganism, carnivore. Artists and musicians create pendulums, fandoms like the Swifties, subcultures and aesthetics, things like clean girl aesthetic, cottagecore, hippie community, opium, goth community, skaters. There's even internal pendulums, things like hustle culture, main character syndrome, martyr complex, victim mentality, people-pleasing pendulum. These structures exist purely because of the energy that's given to them. They feed off of it. It's how they survive. If you stop feeding them energy, they die off. Think of things like VHS tapes or old-fashioned trends like silly bands. The more people who join it, the more energy that is fed to it, whether that be positive or negative energy, the stronger the structure becomes. Eventually, as the pendulum grows, it gets to a point where it takes on its own life, and it will subjugate its laws onto the people who created it, and it will encourage its members to recruit new people to join. You might be asking, okay, so what's wrong with that? What's wrong with identifying with a group? There are a lot of benefits to pendulums, but first you need to become aware of what the dangers are. Like I said, eventually, as a pendulum grows, it will take on a life of its own. Think of it like its own independent living organism. And when it does this, it will start to move. It will evolve, it will mutate over time. And at this point, you no longer have control over it in the direction that it goes in. It can mutate into something completely different than what it was when its members originally created it. When you're deeply a part of a pendulum, you might not even notice this happening because the change is so gradual. It will keep creating new laws and force the members to comply with them. It's like when you're in a large audience and everyone's clapping in unison and somehow inevitably it starts speeding up, and even if you try to keep your original pace or you try to slow it down, you can't. You have no choice but to speed up with it. Or you can think of it like a wave. When you're caught in a wave, it moves you. You can't stop the wave. You can't control the direction of the wave. When you try to resist it, you can get caught in the riptide. One of the dangers is its adherents are unaware that it's moving. They're unaware that they're acting in accordance to the laws of the pendulum and not their own will. For example, say there's a conservative man living in America and he believes in freedom and he believes in pro-choice. Conservatism is a pendulum that has evolved, especially in recent years and especially in the United States. Now, being against abortion could be considered a part of the conservative pendulum. So this man who is pro-choice his entire life might suddenly start thinking, maybe we should actually ban abortion. And he thinks he came to that conclusion himself. He thinks the thoughts are coming from him, but they're not. They're coming from the evolving pendulum. Another good example of how pendulums could evolve dangerously, look at the red pill manosphere pendulum. In the very beginning, it was probably founded on a real core wound, like men who felt disconnected from their masculine identity, who lacked strong male role models growing up, who felt unseen or dismissed by women or society. When they were kids, they probably looked up to masculine archetypes like knights and warriors and heroes, men who stood for honor and protection and strength, and later felt shamed for wanting those traits. The pendulum began by offering these wounded men a sense of meaning, purpose, structure, a brotherhood, and people took advantage of this wave and started making podcasts and content. But look where it is now. Look where it went as it gained energy. It's so extremist. It's just full of so much misogyny and hate and cult-like behavior, and it's continuing to grow and gain more energy and become more and more extreme. The pendulum is swinging farther and farther away. The message is no longer become a strong man and build a meaningful life. It's women are the enemy. Feel nothing. Emotions are weak. Dominate or be dominated. And this is the thing with pendulums, they thrive off there being a common enemy to unite against, an opposing pendulum to point the finger at. It just breeds that divisive us versus them thinking. When you try to exit a strong pendulum because you don't agree with it anymore, or even if you don't agree with a small part of it, it will attack you. It'll attack you through its members and try to reel you back in. Think of it like the Mr. Smiths in the Matrix. For example, patriarchy, massive pendulum, worldwide, very powerful. On TikTok, whenever a man makes a video standing up for women in any way, you'll notice a bunch of people will flood into the comments and say things like, calling him a simp and saying stuff like, she's not gonna let you hit it, bro. They're unconsciously acting out as agents of the Matrix to defend the patriarchal pendulum. Another example is Chapel Roan last year. She went up against a celebrity pendulum by trying to express boundaries to fans. Everyone started calling her ungrateful. They said, you signed up for this and you hate your fans. She went up against another pendulum. She said something like, I'm voting Democrat, but I still want to hold them accountable and make sure they follow through with their promises. And she might have worded it actually worse than that, but people were outraged. They were so angry. They were like, you're complicit. We're losing our rights because of you. And the thing is, she was still a part of that pendulum. She just didn't abide by every single law of it. Pendulums weaponize group loyalty, fear of being cast out, and shame. So there ends up being only one way of thinking. No room for nuance or discussion. This is kind of a silly example, but when I was like 18, 19, I was briefly a part of the hypebeast pendulum. Lining up for Supreme drops. It was a vibe at the time, okay? I remember thinking like, I can't wear my hippie pants even though I like them. I can't wear these shoes because they were cool 5 years ago and they're not cool anymore. I'm gonna get kicked out of the community. And looking back, it's so dumb. Girl, just wear what you want. But the thing about pendulums, the reason we fall for them is because they fulfill a deep psychological need. They give you belonging, identity, certainty, direction. They offer safety in numbers. When you're not a part of one, it can feel really isolating or even dangerous. Now, are pendulums always bad? In Reality Transurfing, he kind of explains them all to be bad because they're parasitic in nature, but I don't necessarily agree, because oftentimes they arise because there's a real problem that needs solving, like an oppression or imbalance. They rise from a group of people who share a common purpose. They can create momentum towards something meaningful, like civil rights, LGBTQ+ rights, feminism, environmentalists. When enough people focus on the same cause or injustice, that mobilizing of collective energy can create real changes in this world. But the key is to be aware of them, because if you're not aware of them, they could sneakily morph into something else. When a pendulum gains enough force, it's not concerned with being aligned with truth. It just wants to survive. And that's when it can swing into extremism and dogma and division. Watch out if it starts to feed off of identity and outrage, or if it starts to attack nuance and silence conversations. That's a red flag. Always check yourself, ask yourself, are these thoughts actually my own? Pendulums are useful tools, but you have to be aware of them. How to practice free thinking. Learn how to hold two truths at once. Social media algorithms, they reward certainty and outrage, not nuance. Our brains are wired to put things into categories. Safe or dangerous, right and wrong, good and bad. You have to try your best to not fall into that black and white thinking, even though it feels safe. Someone could have a valid emotional experience and still be factually misinformed. You can see the pain on both sides of a debate, but still choose to stand with one. Pendulums thrive when you believe only one narrative is allowed to exist, but holding that complexity is what sets you free. For example, you can be grateful for your life and still want more. You can criticize the harmful effects of capitalism while also acknowledging the opportunities and innovations that it brought. You can believe in personal responsibility while also acknowledging that not everyone starts at the same starting point of access to information or finances or support. You can feel angry about how someone treated you while also acknowledging that they were doing the best they could with the emotional tools and beliefs that they inherited. You can be deeply spiritual and also acknowledge logic and science. You can believe someone's lived experience while also disagreeing with their conclusions. You can love someone and still acknowledge that they hurt you. Free thinking doesn't mean justifying someone's harmful behavior, but it means being able to see the full picture. Understanding where someone came from doesn't excuse them, but it helps us move forward without replicating the same cycles again. Listen to perspectives you disagree with, not to argue, but to understand them. I don't know if this is controversial, but I will listen to people from all perspectives. Like, I've heard people from the far left to the far right and everyone in between. Like, I've listened to 2-hour-long podcasts of people that I do not like, people that I strongly disagree with, not because I want to get myself enraged, but because I genuinely want to understand them. I want to know how they came to that conclusion, how they got there. You need to educate yourself outside of your own bubble. Like, so many people just watch content, read books, read articles that just reinforce their own belief systems. I understand why there's a trend of people going from spiritual New Age community to throwing out their tarot cards and becoming an evangelical Christian. Like, I get it. It doesn't mean that I agree with it, but I understand how they got there. And I feel like that is important if we actually want to engage in healthy and productive debates with these people. Like, I genuinely feel like I can talk to some of these people and say, I see where you're coming from. That makes sense inside of your frame of reference. Here's what I still disagree with and why. Like I said earlier, pendulums, they feed off of positive and negative energy. So when you attack someone instead of having healthy dialogue with someone, you're just going to make that pendulum stronger. That person is going to become more defensive of their stance. You're not going to change anyone's mind. Understanding someone is not the same thing as agreeing with someone. I saw this quote, if you think understanding someone is the same as agreeing with someone, then you have not learned how to think critically. You just learned how to perform moral purity. Critical thinking is being able to hold someone else's worldview in your hands, examine it, learn from it, without getting absorbed by it or defending it. Understanding someone is not the same thing as agreeing with someone. Having empathy is not the same thing as endorsement. But in this morally absolutist culture, we've completely erased those distinctions. We've literally replaced thinking with tribal signaling. We no longer listen to understand. We listen to judge whether or not someone is safe or dangerous based on if they reflect our own beliefs back to us or not. In the world of pendulums, there's no space for nuance. It's either loyalty or betrayal. It survives by keeping everyone in reaction mode, not reflection mode, because reactions feed it energy. You're either with us or against us. If you listen to them, you must agree with them, and you're just as bad. It shuts down dialogue. It keeps people in echo chambers. It punishes nuance, which is a space where real transformation could occur. It breeds emotional immaturity because people are afraid of even thinking about other perspectives. It's emotionally and spiritually mature to say, hey, I know where you're coming from. I understand how your background, your environment, your inner pain, your fears have led you to that conclusion. But, this is what I disagree with. Have you ever considered this perspective? Be mindful of your attention. What are you feeding? Your attention is your creative life force. It's your energetic currency. Psychologically, it shapes your perception, your worldview, your identity. Staying informed is important, but if you spend all day reading every single article about how society is going to collapse in order to stay informed, by the end of the day, you're just going to be filled with fear and despair. A lot of people will fight with others in comment sections for hours, feeling like they're making a difference, but you're just draining your soul and you're not changing anyone's minds. A lot of people focus purely on the enemy and they don't put any attention towards the world that they actually want to create. Ask yourself, is my attention going towards what I want to see more of? Because energy flows where attention goes. A small fire without fuel, it dies off. You blow wind on it, it becomes a wildfire. So be careful, what flames are you fanning? I'm not gonna lie, being someone who doesn't want to play the game of pendulums can be isolating at times. It's kind of like you don't belong anywhere. But speaking with other people, I feel like everyone is getting a bit tired. I think people are craving genuine conversations. People are craving nuance. People are craving us to all just stop fighting each other and actually start working on building a better future for humanity. You don't need a label, you don't need an ideology, you don't need an aesthetic. The most rebellious thing you can do in a society of dogma and hive mind thinking is to learn how to think for yourself. So that's my video for today. If you'd like, you can share your experiences in the comments below. Like, have you ever lost a group or been attacked for changing your perspectives? I'd love to hear it. And thank you so much for watching. I'll speak to you next week. Bye.